Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there lived a wealthy merchant who had a beautiful parrot. The parrot had been in the family for many years. The merchant considered her his most precious possession. The parrot was colorful, clever, and wise. Every morning she greeted him warmly, and every night she filled the house with her sweet melodies. She answered many of his difficult questions and guided him when he became confused, comforted him in times of sorrow, and celebrated with him in moments of joy. Hello, and welcome to Storytellers and Alchemists, where we re enchant the world one story at a time. I am Amira, and today our story comes from the heart of Rumi's Masnavi. So, our merchant loved his parrot dearly. He built her a magnificent golden cage. He brought her delicious food from all over the world and filled her cage with exotic flowers and beautiful branches to delight her eyes. And yet, as the years passed, the parrot grew weary. Days after days, she became weaker and weaker. The sparkle in her eyes slowly began to fade. The merchant tried everything to keep her healthy and happy and alive and vibrant, or so he thought. He consulted world famous physicians and talented healers of his time, but no one could find a cure. And slowly, helplessly, the parrot continued to wither away before his eyes. The merchant was deeply grieving. So this merchant used to travel every year for trade. And this year he was preparing for a long journey to India. Before leaving, he asked his beloved parrot, "What shall I bring you from there?" The parrot answered, "I do not want jewels or treasures. I only ask for one thing. Tell the parrots of India my story. Tell them about my sad affair and ask them to remember me." The merchant promised he would. So, when he arrived in India, he ventured deep into the forest where flocks of parrots gathered among the trees. And there he delivered his parrot's message. One of the parrots heard the sad story and trembled violently and suddenly fell from the branch onto the ground below, breathless. The merchant was horrified. "I killed this poor bird," he lamented. Heavy with grief, he completed his trade and finally returned home. He brought gifts for everyone except his beloved parrot. The parrot immediately noticed her master's distress. "What troubles you, my lord?" she asked softly. The merchant sighed deeply and replied, "I met the parrots of India and delivered your message. But one of them became so overwhelmed with sorrow that she shuddered violently and fell lifeless to the ground the moment she heard your story." Our parrot listened attentively, and then suddenly she too trembled violently and dropped motionless onto the floor of her cage. The merchant leapt in terror. "What have I done? My sweet, sweet bird!" he cried. Then, with trembling hands, he carefully lifted his beloved parrot from the cage and placed her gently on the ground to prepare for burial. But the moment he let go, the dead bird opened her eyes, spread her wings, and flew upward onto the highest branch, far beyond his reach. The parrot stood quietly on the branch for a moment and then looked down at the merchant. "The bird of India did not die from grief," she explained softly. "She acted dead to show me the way. My beautiful feathers, my sweet singing voice, even my wisdom, all the things that I thought were my greatest gifts, had become part of my cage. They kept me entrapped. I needed to let go. It was only by letting go of what I thought was my most precious and possessions that I gained my freedom, my true freedom," she said. In that moment, the merchant finally understood. To truly love the bird, he had to set it free. And strangely enough, instead of grief, his heart was filled with joy. Looking up at the parrot perched high among the branches, he exclaimed, God be with you each and every day. Bless you for showing me a worthier way. So, in our story, the parrot is a part of us that longs for something beyond ordinary life. It is the inner wisdom within us, the part that longs for peace, freedom, and taste of something eternal, the part that longs to flee the entrapment of the ordinary world and soar freely in open skies. And intuitively, we know that we need to care for this part of ourselves, so we try. We practice what we call today self care. And like the merchant, we build the soul a beautiful golden cage. We feed it all kinds of luxuries, the best food, beautiful things, comfort, entertainment, success, pleasures, distractions. Everything we believe should make us feel alive and fulfilled. And yet, sometimes, despite all of this, the soul continues to wither. Because what nourishes the body, mind, and even the heart is not always what nourishes the soul. Sometimes the very thing we believe are feeding us are quietly depleting us instead. The merchant is also part of us. He is a part that chooses to play it safe, the part that clings to the familiar and wants to preserve the status quo, the part that is constantly trying to protect us every time the soul is yearning for true freedom. The merchant keeps us trapped in the cage of material world with all its attractions and distractions, all the desires, the attachments, the craving, and the fears. And this is why the soul needs to connect with a higher wisdom to show it the way. In the story, these are the parrots of India, the breath of the divine within every one of us, the spirit that somehow knows the way because it has been there before in time eternal. The part of us that has already tasted true freedom, true bliss, the part that has once been bewildered by the beauty of the divine. It is our inner guidance, the quiet voice within us that whispers gently toward the right direction, the right choices, the right path. And yet, most of the time, that voice becomes muffled and lost in the wilderness of our noisy daily life, the chaos of the cage. To find freedom, our parrot needed to let go of fear. She needed to allow the old self to die, only to be resurrected in a more magnificent way. She needed to let go of everything she thought was her most precious possession. And that is terrifying. Letting some part of ourselves die is never easy. Yet, at some point in our journey, we have no choice. Because it is only when we truly feel the trust, when we finally loosen our grip and let go of our desperate grasping, that we can truly become free. As Carl Jung teaches, only boldness can deliver us from fear, and if the risk is not taken, the meaning of life is violated. The parrot is resurrected anew, but life out there is not a smooth ride. Inside the cage, at least, she had food and water. She was protected from predators and hunters. She was safe. But now, she is on her own. She has crossed the threshold and embarked on her journey, a road of trials. No one knows what awaits her next, and yet, for her, it is totally worth it. Because this journey, with all its uncertainty, pain, risk, beauty, and challenges, is life itself. Without challenge, what meaning would there be in remaining forever trapped inside the golden cage? And so off she goes. And once out of the cage, the parrot cannot look back. Because if she returns, the merchant may never give her another chance. The cage will become tighter, darker. He may even throw her into a dungeon to make sure she never again dares to dream to escape. Once you cross the threshold, don't look back. But remember, the merchant who entraps us is also part of us. Our fears, our longings, our anger, and our cravings. No one from the outside is entirely to blame. The merchant is a part of us that longs for safety, security, beauty, pleasure, and comfort. And maybe the part that is scared. And all this is human. All are beautiful and necessary at times, but none of them by themselves can truly nourish a starving soul. Take a moment to think. Is your soul holding on to some part of your life that needs to die? A relationship? An old dream? A wound? An identity? Or maybe a story you have repeated for so long you started believing it was true? What fear is holding your soul back? What craving? What attachment? And cravings are not necessarily material things. Sometimes we crave attention. We crave to be noticed, to be valued, to be loved. Sometimes we crave acknowledgement. We yearn for someone to notice our pain, to recognize our worth, to finally see what we have carried for so long. We long for someone to love and someone who loves us back. Likewise, our fears can masquerade in so many forms. They can show up as frantic overworking, overdoing, overcontrolling, a futile attempt to keep everything organized, stable, and predictable. We become afraid to slow down, afraid to loosen our grip, afraid to breathe, afraid that if we pause or even just take a breath for one moment, our whole world might fall apart. And again, none of this is necessarily wrong or bad. We are human. We need to love and be loved. We crave, we fear, we cling, we hope. But sometimes, without even realizing it, we begin fighting against the natural flow of our own life. We keep holding on to dreams that are not even ours, to stories that are not even true. Blindfolded, we follow the crowd whenever they might lead us, or we remain in a painful status quo simply because it is familiar, simply because we do not know who we would be without it. So let's take time to pause for a while and ponder. What do you need to let go of? What part of your story needs to die in order for your soul to continue living? What needs to die in your life so it can be resurrected anew in a healthier form and shape? What must fall away to make room for new growth, new life, new regeneration? There is a beautiful passage from the 18th century poet Alexander Pope that captures this beautifully. He says, "Look around our world, behold this chain of love, combining all below and all above. See dying vegetables life sustain. See life dissolving vegetate again. All forms that perish, other forms supply. By turns we catch the vital breath and die. Like bubbles on the sea of matter born, they rise, they break, and to that sea return. Nothing is foreign. Parts relate to whole. One all extending, all preserving soul. All served, all serving. Nothing stands alone. The chain holds on, and where it ends, unknown." This beautiful view of the cycle of life and death always reminds me of tiny little organelles I fell in love with while studying and teaching biochemistry, the mitochondria. Every single cell in our body houses thousands of these tiny organelles. Most people know mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell because of their role in energy production. But mitochondria are responsible for many other things. One very important role and function of the mitochondria is that they help regulate cellular death. When a cell becomes damaged or begins showing signs of malfunction, the mitochondria inside this cell can initiate the cell's self destruction, a process known as apoptosis. It is estimated that every day our body loses billions of cells through apoptosis. And surprisingly, this is not a tragedy. It is a natural, intelligent, beautifully orchestrated process. Yet, it is also incredibly complex. The mitochondria do not take lightly a process that triggers a death alarm and initiates cellular disintegration. But once a cell is damaged beyond repair, it becomes time to let it go. And the dying cells never go to waste. Our bodies are astonishing recyclers. The cells are broken down in an orderly manner, and neighboring cells safely assimilate many of the fragments and components for reuse, much like the way we slowly assimilate the lessons of our painful experiences and challenges in life, and they eventually become part of our new emerging stories. And do you know what happens if the mitochondria fail to initiate apoptosis? Cancer. Yes, cancer. If a damaged cell is allowed to continue living unchecked, it replicates and spreads, resulting in malignant growth. And so our mitochondria remains ever watchful, vigilantly scanning the environment, constantly asking, what needs to die? And if they fail to ask this question, cancer begins to emerge. And our inner world is but a reflection of our outer reality. The problem is not that mistakes happen or that things occasionally fall apart. Mistakes, wounds, challenges, wrong turns, unhealthy attachment, failures, and painful patterns are part of being human. The deeper problem begins when we fail to notice, when we refuse to release what no longer belongs in our lives, when we do not allow to die what needs to die. And so, both biologically and spiritually, there eventually comes a moment when life quietly asks us the same difficult question: what needs to die? Until we meet again, may the stories you encounter guide you back to the quiet wisdom within. And if you feel called, please share this with someone who might need a little wonder in their life today. Thank you.